The moment I got the divorce certificate, I stopped the monthly 10,000 yuan allowance for my mother-in-law. My husband was busy taking care of his mistress at the maternity center. Completely unaware of this, he texted me, demanding to know why I was being unfilial and if I wanted his mother to starve. I didn't reply. When he finished taking care of me during my postpartum confinement and returned home with all his bags, he was completely stunned. I had sold the house, and all the furniture was gone. He didn't know that the money used to buy the house originally came from my parents, and he had no idea that his mother was now kneeling at my doorstep, begging me. The sweltering afternoon air was thick like unmelted syrup. In the hallway of my newly rented apartment, a farce more suffocating than the weather was unfolding. Sky Wang, my former mother-in-law, was kneeling in a textbook perfect posture at my doorstep, slapping her thighs as her wails pierced through the thin security door. Echoing down the corridor, "Damn you, Iris Lin, you heartless creature, what has our Jew family ever done to wrong you, that you would harm us like this? The son I worked so hard to raise has been ruined by you, you jinx." Her cries and curses drew the attention of the neighbors. Several doors quietly cracked open, and countless inquisitive eyes, like spotlights, focused on my tightly shut door, holding a freshly brewed cup of coffee. I walked to the door and peered through the peephole at the face twisted with agitation outside. Without anger, without sorrow, my heart is as calm as an ancient well in late autumn. I even had the leisure to take a sip of coffee, savoring the bitter aroma spreading on my tongue. This farce, I had anticipated it long ago. The phone vibrated wildly on the table, the screen flashing with the two words, Rex Jew. I couldn't even be bothered to look, so I just muted it, letting it bounce on the desktop like a dying fish. The farce lasted about 10 minutes, and Sky Wang's voice was already hoarse. I figured the timing was about right, so I leisurely set down my coffee cup, took the car keys from the hook by the entrance, and clenched them in my palm. The cold touch of the metal made me even more alert. I pulled open the door, blinding light and the clamor of voices instantly flooded in. All the curious gazes in the hallway immediately focused on me in unison. With a calm expression, I stood there in a well-tailored beige dress, gently swinging my car keys, as if everything before me was merely a farce that had nothing to do with me. Sky Wang's eyes instantly lit up with a new brightness when she saw me come out, as if she had found an outlet for her emotions. She immediately stopped wailing and scrambled toward me on all fours, trying to cling to my leg. "Iris, my dear daughter-in-law, Mom knows she was wrong. Mom truly knows she was wrong." I simply sidestepped slightly, and she missed her target, landing face down on the cold floor tiles in a pitiful heap. "You can't be so cruel. Rex will beat me to death. He really will." She lay on the ground, looking up with her face smeared in tears and snot. I looked down at her from above, the corners of my lips curling into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Did he hit you because I stopped your monthly filial piety allowance of 10,000? Or because I sold the home he'd been dreaming of?" My voice wasn't loud, but it clearly reached the ears of every neighbor who was eagerly listening in on the gossip. Sky Wang's expression changed instantly, shifting from grief to shock, then to a hint of guilty resentment. She probably didn't expect me to lay things out so bluntly in front of so many people. The phone was still vibrating on the table. Rex Jew's patience had clearly run out. I walked back inside, picked up the phone, found his number in front of Sky Wang, held it down, and selected block. The entire sequence flowed smoothly, without a moment's hesitation. Sky Wang watched me complete all this in stunned silence, realizing that gentle tactics wouldn't work anymore. So she sprang up from the ground like a lit firecracker, pointing at my nose and unleashing a torrent of abuse. "You barren hen, our Jew family must have been cursed for 8 generations to have married you. You eat our food and live under our roof, and now that you've grown wings, you want to kick us aside. Dream on. A thankless wretch like you deserves to be struck by lightning. A hen that can't lay eggs." These 6 words pierced my heart like a rusted awl. In an instant, those images I had deliberately suppressed deep in my memory surged forth like a tidal wave. 2 years ago, I was 2 months pregnant. That day, Sky Wang. Because I hadn't helped her brother, that gambling-addicted scoundrel, raise money to pay off his debts, made veiled criticisms of me in the living room, I talked back to her. She instantly flew into a rage, rushing over and shoving me hard. I staggered and crashed into the sharp corner of the coffee table. A warm liquid immediately trickling down between my legs. I curled up on the floor in pain, my face deathly pale, desperately pleading for help from Rex Jew standing nearby. Rex Jew, save me. Our child. But Rex Jew just frowned and went to support his frightened mother first. Sky Wang didn't even glance at me, merely spitting impatiently. Such a trivial matter, what's all the fuss about? In our day, we worked in the fields even while pregnant, and no one was as delicate as you, and my husband. Rex Jew simply looked at me with a reproachful gaze and uttered words that still send chills down my spine when I recall them. Iris Lynn, don't be so unreasonable. Mom only means well for me, she's getting old, can't you just give in to her a little? For his own good, let me give in to her. I lost my child, that child I had been longing for, the one we had both looked forward to together, vanished without a sound, all because of a baseless outburst of anger and a cold, indifferent onlooker. The day I left the hospital, the sky was grey, my heart was dead too. From that day on, I took off the mask that symbolized gentleness and virtue, and began secretly paving a way out for myself. The memories came to an abrupt halt, the last trace of warmth in my eyes vanished completely. I looked at Sky Wang, who was still throwing a tantrum before me, my voice devoid of any emotion. Madam, if you're looking to stage an accident for compensation, you've got the wrong place. Turn left at the intersection ahead, the police station is right there. They're the professionals. I turned to the onlooking neighbors and gave a slight bow. My apologies for the disturbance. With that, I prepared to close the door. At that moment, a screeching brake sound erupted downstairs. Immediately after, came heavy and hurried footsteps, growing louder as they approached. Rex Jew had arrived. He charged up the stairs like an enraged bull, and at a glance, he saw his mother kneeling on the floor, wailing in despair. And me, standing opposite her, cold as ice. Rage instantly consumed all his reason. Iris Lynn, you bitch, he roared, raising his hand, and a massive slap came hurtling toward my face. The wind howled. The neighbors let out muffled exclamations. I didn't dodge, but merely took a subtle step back a second before I anticipated his palm would descend. His slap, carried by the wind, narrowly grazed past the tip of my nose. It fell through. The surrounding air seemed to freeze. Rex Jew stumbled and nearly fell from exerting too much force. He steadied himself, his eyes filled with shock at having missed me and an even more overwhelming fury. I didn't give him a second chance. From the bag I carried with me, I took out that small red booklet, still slightly warm to the touch, and slowly unfolded it before his eyes. Divorce certificate. On it, our photos were placed side by side, yet forever separated by that cold steel seal in the middle. Mr. Jew, see clearly. My voice was calm, yet carried an undeniable force. We no longer have any relationship. If that slap of yours lands, the nature of this changes. That's called intentional harm. Rex Jew's gaze was fixed on the red divorce certificate, his pupils contracting sharply in shock. The expression on his face shifted within seconds, from fury to bewilderment, then to an absurd disbelief. Divorce certificate. When did you? He seemed to have all the strength drained from his body, his raised arm dropping weakly. While you were enjoying family bliss with your true love at the postpartum center. I stated the fact calmly, each word like a small hammer striking his fragile self-esteem. Iris Lynn, you set me up. After a brief moment of daze, an even fiercer rage erupted. He finally realized he had been played. He thought he had everything under control, but little did he know, I had already pulled the rug out from under him where he couldn't see. This house is our shared property. How dare you sell it? Spit the money back out, he roared like a trapped beast, lunging at me, aiming for the document folder in my hand. It contained all the documents related to the house. Sky Wang also snapped back to reality and immediately fanned the flames, her voice shrill and piercing. Son, hit her. Grab the property deed. The house is ours. What right does an outsider like her have to decide? Ours, I sneered. And just as Rex Jew's hand was about to touch me, I quickly pulled out my phone and dialed 110. At the same time, with my other hand, I activated the video recording function, aiming the camera at the disgraceful mother and son pair before me. Hello, is this 110? I'm at XX building, XX apartment, XX community. Someone has broken into my home and is attempting robbery and assault. My voice was clear and calm, without a trace of trembling. Rex Jew froze in his tracks. Sky Wang's curses got stuck in her throat. They didn't expect that I would actually call the police. In their perception, I would always be the submissive Iris Lin who wouldn't fight back or retaliate when scolded. Iris Lin, you're crazy. This is a family matter. What are you calling the police for? Rex Jew lowered his voice, unable to conceal the panic in his tone. Family matters. I held up my phone, panning the camera across their faces. Mr. Jew, we're already divorced. You, your mother, and we're no longer family. The police arrived quickly. 2 young officers in uniform came upstairs, frowning at the tense standoff. What's going on? Sky Wang immediately launched into her dramatic performance, plopping onto the floor and starting a fresh round of wailing. Officers, you must stand up for me. This heartless woman tricked my son into divorcing her, secretly sold our family home, and now she's trying to kick us out. Rex Jew also chimed in. Officer, this is our joint marital property. She has no right to dispose of it unilaterally. I ignored their performance and simply waited quietly until they finished speaking. Then, I walked up to the police officer, opened the document folder in my hand, and took out its contents one by one, spreading them on the hallway railing. Officer, this is the property deed, which bears only my name, Iris Lin. On the property deed, the bright red seal and the bold black characters stung Rex Jew's eyes. This is the purchase contract, and the signatory is also me, Iris Lin. Here are my parents' bank transaction records, which clearly show that before the marriage, a one-time full payment of 12 million was transferred from my parents' account to the developer, not a single cent less. With every piece of evidence I presented, Rex Jew's face grew paler. He had always believed that the down payment for this apartment was made by my parents out of regard for him as their outstanding son-in-law, a symbol of our joint struggle. He even boasted at countless drinking gatherings about how, at such a young age, he owned a luxury apartment worth millions in the city center. Now, this symbol he used to flaunt and feed his vanity has been utterly shattered by me with irrefutable evidence, to make this performance even more perfect. I thoughtfully pulled out an A4 sheet from the document folder. Above is the section of the Civil Code regarding premarital property that I specifically printed out, with key points highlighted in fluorescent marker. The premarital property of one party shall be considered the personal property of that spouse. If parents contribute to purchasing a property for their child before marriage, it shall be recognized as a personal gift to their own child. I handed that piece of paper to Rex Jew. Mr. Jew, you're also a sales manager, so I assume you can read. My tone was dripping with sarcasm. This is called personal premarital property. You and your mother have been living in my house rent-free for 5 years. I haven't charged you a single cent in rent. That's already the utmost kindness I could show. Lived for free for 5 years. These words struck Rex Jew like a sledgehammer to the head. His face flushed red, then turned ashen, and finally became deathly pale. The home he had been so proud of was, in reality, just a rental he had been squatting in. His so-called master status was nothing but a figment of his own imagination from start to finish. After reviewing all the evidence, the police glanced at Rex Jew and his mother, whose faces had turned ashen, and everything became clear to them. They sternly issued a verbal warning to Rex Jew and Sky Wang. This lady's property rights are very clear. Your actions have already constituted harassment. If there's a next time, we'll have no choice but to invite you to the station for a sit-down. Seeing the situation turning against her and realizing the police wouldn't take her side, Sky Wang collapsed to the ground again, slapping her thighs. She resorted to her rural tantrum tactics, wailing about her miserable fate. What sin have I committed? I raised an ungrateful son and married off to a venomous-hearted daughter-in-law. Why is my fate so bitter? The neighbors' gazes, initially curious, turned to disdain and mockery. Rex Jew stood there in a daze, muttering incessantly, "Impossible. This can't be. You're lying to me." I can't be bothered to watch their clumsy performance any longer. I gathered all the documents and thanked the police officer. Just before closing the door, I glanced at Rex Jew's pale face and casually dropped another bombshell. Rex Jew, don't lose it just yet, this is just the beginning. You'd better think carefully while there's still time. Where exactly did the money come from for those Hermes bags you bought your so-called true love? With a loud bang, I shut the door, locking out all the wailing, curses, and despair. The world is finally peaceful. Inside the door lies a brand new, bright apartment. Outside the door, Rex Jew and Sky Wang stagger away under the neighbor's pointing fingers, looking utterly disheveled. I kick off my high heels and step barefoot onto the slightly cool wooden floor, enveloped in an unprecedented sense of relief. On the living room sofa sat a woman dressed in a sharp suit, elegantly swirling a glass of red wine in her hand. It was my best friend, Lawyer Jiang. Well done. She raised her glass toward me, her eyes filled with undisguised admiration. I walked over, poured myself a glass as well, and lightly clinked it with hers. The crisp sound of glass touching glass was like the prelude to victory. I could hear it all the way downstairs. Your ex-mother-in-law's voice could really qualify for a soprano, Lawyer Jiang teased. I took a sip of the red wine, the spicy liquid sliding down my throat, bringing a hint of burning warmth. That's all she's capable of. But next, it's time to expose the ticking bomb in his company. Lawyer Jiang put away his joking demeanor and turned serious. Is all the evidence ready? Foolproof, I nodded. For this day, I've been preparing for a full 2 years. Every instance of Rex Jew embezzling public funds, every forged contract, I quietly photocopied, archived, and organized them all clearly. He thought he was flawless. But he didn't know that the most docile person by his side was silently weaving an inescapable net around him. Just then, my phone rang abruptly. It was an unfamiliar number. I frowned and glanced at Lawyer Jiang. She gestured for me to answer and then pointed to the speakerphone button. I swiped to answer and pressed the speakerphone. From the other end of the line came a sweet, tearful female voice. It was that other woman, Su Qing. Hello, is this Sister Iris Lin? I didn't speak, quietly listening to her performance. Sister, I know you and Rex had a falling out, and I know you must really hate me in your heart. But Rex truly loves me, and he loves our baby too. We can't live without him. If the house is gone, we can work hard to buy another one. If the money is gone, we can earn it again. Could you please stop pressuring him? He's been under so much stress lately, and it breaks my heart to see him like this. Her voice was weak and fragile, every word dripping with kindness and consideration. As if I were the aggressive villain disrupting their true love. 2 years ago, hearing these words might have made me tremble with anger, but now, I just find it laughable. I even laughed out loud. On the other end of the phone, Su Qing paused, her sobbing also stopping abruptly. Sister, what are you laughing at? I'm laughing at your naivety. I picked up the wine glass and took another sip, my voice laced with a hint of lazy mockery. Miss Su, may I ask, in what capacity are you saying these words to me now? Is this Mrs. Jew? Oh, I forgot. This seat is vacant now. But, I deliberately drew out my tone. Are you sure you can sit firmly in it? Su Qing was left speechless by my barrage of questions, probably not expecting me to be so direct. After a few seconds of silence, she resorted to using tears as a weapon again. Sis, you weren't like this before. You used to be so gentle, so kind. Why have you become so harsh? Because gentleness and kindness can't satisfy wolves like you. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words on her and hung up the phone directly. I shrugged at Lawyer Jiang. See, there are always people who think they're the center of the universe, and everyone should revolve around them. Lawyer Jiang shook his head with a smile, foolish without even realizing it. Meanwhile, in an old residential district dozens of kilometers away, Rex Jew, who had just been drowned in the neighbor's spittle and exhausted by his mother's hysterical crying, was irritably grabbing his hair. His phone let out a ding at that moment. It was a text message from the personal number of his company's CFO, Rex Jew, regarding the 200,000 client advance payment you handled last month. The client just called to deny this transaction. There are serious issues with the accounts. You must come to the company's main conference room at 9 a.m. tomorrow to explain this to me and the boss. The text message was brief, without any superfluous words, but each character felt like an icy knife, piercing straight into Rex Jew's heart. His hands and feet instantly turned cold. That sum of money, that 200,000, of course he remembered. With that money, he bought Su Qing, who had just borne him a dragon's son, the Hermes Birkin bag she had been longing for. The rest was spent on a full month's payment at that top-tier postpartum care center. He thought he had covered all his tracks, effortlessly deceiving the company's financial system with a forged prepayment contract. He even took pride in his so-called brilliance. Little did he know that retribution would come so swiftly. Rex Jew was completely panicked. The double blow of the failed house sale and the exposure of embezzlement crashed down on him like two mountains, suffocating him. He urgently needed a sum of money, enough to plug the financial hole in the company. He burst into the dim little room rented by his mother, Sky Wang, where the air was thick with the musty smell of dampness and mold. "Mom, where's the family passbook? Get it out now. How much money do we have left?" His voice was hoarse with fear. Sky Wang was sitting on the edge of the bed wiping her tears when she heard her son's words, her eyes flickering with unease. The money, she stammered, fumbling under the mattress to pull out a worn cloth bundle. Unwrapping it, she revealed a savings passbook. Rex Jew snatched it from her and flipped it open. When he saw the glaring number on it, his entire body froze. 3,215 yuan. How is this possible? Just this little? Rex Jew's eyes instantly turned red, unable to believe what he was seeing. "I give you 20,000 yuan every month as salary, and I only keep 2,000 for my own living expenses. After all these years, there should be at least 700,000 or 800,000 in savings at home. Where is the money?" He was like an out-of-control beast, gripping Sky Wang's shoulders and shaking them violently. Sky Wang, dizzy and disoriented from the shaking, finally couldn't hold back any longer and tearfully told the truth. "The money, all the money went to your uncle." "What, your uncle?" "He went gambling in Macau again and racked up a mountain of debt. They were going to chop off his hands. He's your only uncle. How could I not help? Could I just stand by and watch him die?" Sky Wang wept uncontrollably, tears and mucus streaming down her face. The only uncle. This excuse again. Fragments of the past resurfaced in my mind once again. It was the third year of my marriage to Rex Jew when I accidentally discovered that Sky Wang had been secretly transferring money to her gambling-addicted brother every month, each time amounting to 10 or 20,000. Despite the obvious high household expenses, our savings never seemed to grow. I had kindly reminded Rex Jew to rein in his mother and not endlessly subsidize her family without limits. And then what? Rex Jew flew into a rage, pointing at my nose and calling me petty, saying I was bitter and couldn't tolerate his family. He said, "My mom has worked hard all her life, she can spend her money however she wants. Who are you to interfere?" He also warned, "Iris Lin, I'm telling you now, never bring up my uncle again. He's my mom's only family. Now, karma has come." Every word he once said to defend his family has now turned into a slap across his own face. "That's my money, money I worked so hard for. It was meant for your retirement, not for him to pay off his gambling debts." For the first time, Rex Jew let out a hysterical scream at his mother, whom he had always obeyed without question. "You old fool, you've cut off all my escape routes." Sky Wang was also stunned. She never expected her usually obedient son to speak to her in such a tone. She also cried out, "Rex Jew, you heartless wretch, you forget your mother the moment you marry a wife. If it weren't for you, would I have to humble myself like this? And now you're blaming me instead." In that cramped rental apartment, the mother and son had the most intense argument in their history. One resented the other for draining the family's savings, while the other blamed them for bringing utter disgrace. Their once seemingly unbreakable community of interests finally showed its first crack under the immense crisis. After the quarrel, a deathly silence fell. Rex Jew slumped on the ground, his eyes empty. He had reached a dead end. Amidst this desolate ruin, he suddenly remembered me. Remembered the me who once obeyed his every word, treating his utterances as divine decrees. He thought that as long as I was willing to forgive him, as long as I was willing to turn back. There would still be a chance for everything. After all, my parents were so wealthy and doted on me so much. If I just say the word, forget about 200,000, even 2 million, my parents would definitely help him cover this hole. So, he started texting me, one message after another. The phone screen kept lighting up. Iris, I know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? Iris, do you remember where we first met? Under that big banyan tree, you were wearing a white dress. I knew right then that you were the girl I wanted to marry in this lifetime. Haven't I treated you well these past 5 years? I gave you all my salary. I listened to everything you said. How could you be so heartless? Iris, if you just come back, I'll break it off with Su Qing immediately. I swear, from now on, I'll only be good to you. I stared at these affectionate messages with an expressionless face, feeling waves of nausea. These cheap sweet words might have moved me to tears in the past, but now, they're worse than garbage in my eyes. I didn't reply, I just silently took screenshots of every message he sent, then, packed and organized them neatly. I clicked on Su Qing's WeChat profile picture, the one where she was holding her child, smiling with pure happiness. I sent her all those screenshots, one by one. Finally, I thoughtfully added a caption. Look, this is the man you love, as soon as something goes wrong. He immediately turns back to beg his ex-wife for mercy. Miss Su, how are you finding that Hermes bag? Comfortable to carry? Send. After finishing all this, I tossed my phone aside. He raised his glass and downed the remaining red wine in one gulp. The show is about to begin. The next day, Rex Jew reluctantly went to the office. He hadn't slept all night, his eyes were bloodshot, and he looked as haggard as a frostbitten eggplant. He held on to a glimmer of hope. Perhaps the CFO had made a mistake. Maybe there was still a chance to turn things around. When he pushed open the door to the large conference room, all his illusions were shattered in an instant. 3 people were seated in the conference room: the company's boss, a middle-aged man nearing 50 with an imposing presence that commands respect without anger; the CFO, a woman with gold-rimmed glasses and a stern expression; and the head of the company's legal department, a setup resembling a 3-way interrogation. On the long conference table, there were no teacups, only a thick stack of documents. Rex Jew's legs instantly went weak. Rex Jew, have a seat. The boss's tone betrayed no emotion. Rex Jew stiffly pulled out the chair and sat down, feeling like a condemned prisoner awaiting sentencing. The financial director pushed the stack of documents toward him. These are the forged prepayment contracts for Fenghua Technology and the related transfer application records that you fabricated. We contacted the person in charge at Fenghua Technology, and they clearly stated that there was never any such prepayment. After you applied for it, this 200,000 yuan was transferred in 3 installments to a personal account under the name Su Qing. Do you have anything to explain, Rex Jew? Every word from the CFO felt like a heavy hammer, striking hard at Rex Jew's chest. He stared at the evidence on the table, more complete and detailed than even his own memory, his forged signatures. His falsified accounts. Each entry was crystal clear, leaving no room for argument. His entire body was cold, as if he had fallen into an icy abyss. He knew it was over for him. The boss looked at his deathly pale face and spoke coldly. The company only investigated this account after receiving an anonymous tip-off email. The email contained all the evidence. An anonymous tip-off email. A loud buzz echoed in Rex Jew's mind. It's him. No, it was her. It was Iris Lin. There couldn't possibly be anyone else. The woman he thought was docile and harmless, someone he could manipulate at will, had actually dealt him such a fatal blow behind his back. The company is giving you 2 options now. The boss raised 2 fingers. First, immediately return all the embezzled funds, 200,000, not a penny less. Then, you resign voluntarily. Out of consideration for past ties, the company will not pursue legal action against you. Second, we'll call the police right now. The crime of embezzlement, involving a huge amount, is enough to put you behind bars for several years. 200,000. Call the police. Jail time. These words, like a curse, swirled in Rex Jew's mind. Where would he get 200,000? Right now, He couldn't even scrape together 2,000 from head to toe. He was utterly panicked. His rationality collapsing in an instant, in front of everyone, he took out his phone and, with trembling hands, dialed Su Qing's number. Su Qing, quick, sell that bag right now, give me the money back, he was practically screaming. On the other end of the line, Su Qing, clearly still reeling from the screenshots I had sent her the night before, responded with a tone full of sharpness and venom. Rex Ju, are you out of your mind? That was a gift from you. How dare you ask me to sell it and return the money? It's mine. What's yours or mine? That money belongs to the company. I'm going to jail now. Don't you understand? What does your jail time have to do with me? It's your own incompetence. Rex Ju, I'm telling you, don't even think about touching my bag, and we're over, you liar. With a click, the phone was hung up. Rex Ju held his phone, listening to the beep beep of the busy tone, completely stunned. His last hope was shattered. Despair, like a tidal wave, engulfed him. He abruptly stood up from his chair, rushed out of the meeting room, and stormed out of the company building. Like a headless fly, he drove his beat-up car, still under loan, recklessly through the city, crashing and swerving in a frenzy. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew that he couldn't go to jail. Finally, the car stopped in front of an imposing office building. He looked up and saw those gilded characters, Juncheng Law Firm. It was Iris Lin's new company. He seemed to have grasped the last lifeline, stumbling frantically into the building. Right at the entrance of the building, he witnessed a scene he would never forget for the rest of his life. Iris Lin, his ex-wife, was walking out of the building side by side with a handsome man dressed in an elegant suit, his posture tall and straight. She had taken off those old-fashioned black-framed glasses, revealing a pair of clear and bright eyes. She wore delicate, understated makeup and a sharp professional suit, radiating an aura of brilliance. She was tilting her head slightly, speaking to that man with a confident, composed smile he had never seen before. That man was lawyer Jiang's younger brother, who had only stopped by to deliver a document to his sister. But in Rex Ju's eyes, their intimate posture and her radiant smile were the sharpest thorns, piercing straight into his heart. Jealousy, resentment, hatred, and bone-chilling despair instantly consumed him. He no longer cared about dignity or face. He rushed forward, under Iris Lin's stunned gaze, in full view of everyone coming and going. Plop, he fell to his knees with a thud, kneeling heavily before me, clutching my legs. He sobbed uncontrollably, his face smeared with tears and snot. Wife, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Save me, please, save me. I don't want to go to jail. I really don't want to go to jail. Ask your parents to help me. Just this last time, I'm begging you, honey. I looked at Rex Ju, who was kneeling on the ground, clutching my calf, and crying like a 300-pound child. Without the slightest ripple of emotion in my heart, the surrounding air seemed to freeze, and all the passing office workers stopped in their tracks, staring at us as if we were monsters. Beside me, the younger brother of lawyer Jiang, that handsome man who had been innocently dragged into this farce, wore an expression of sheer embarrassment and bewilderment. I gave him an apologetic smile, my voice as calm as if I were discussing the weather. Sorry about that, just ran into a lunatic. You can go ahead, just leave the documents with me. He acted as if granted amnesty, handed me the documents, and almost fled the scene as if escaping a place of trouble. I lowered my head, looking down at the man who was weeping and sniveling at my feet. Once, he had been just as spirited, standing before me with the demeanor of a controller, dictating how I should live my life. Now, he was like a stray dog, kneeling at my feet, wagging his tail and begging for mercy. How ironic. Rex Ju, have you forgotten? We're already divorced. I tried to pull my leg away, but he held on even tighter. Wife, Iris, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. He lifted his tear-streaked face, his eyes filled with pleading. You can't treat me like this. After all, we have 5 years of marital affection. I felt like I had heard the biggest joke in the world and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Are you talking about when I was 2 months pregnant? Your mother pushed me and caused a miscarriage. Yet you stood by and scolded me for being unreasonable. Or perhaps when you took the money my parents gave me to buy a house. lived in it guilt-free for 5 years, and even boasted everywhere that it was the result of your own hard work, or maybe, when you embezzled company funds to buy luxury goods for your mistress and put her up in a top-tier postpartum care center, while I couldn't even bring myself to buy a single new piece of clothing. With every word I spoke, Rex Jew's face grew paler. I crouched down to meet his eye level, my gaze sharp as a blade. Rex Jew, your kindness and your favors are far too cheap, so cheap, they make me sick. My words were like poisoned daggers, each strike drawing blood, stripping away what little dignity he had left. He was left speechless by my rebuttal, his expression shifting from pleading to furious humiliation. Seeing that soft tactics wouldn't work, he decided to try brute force. Iris Lynn, don't you dare push your luck, he growled through gritted teeth, his face contorted with menace. If you don't help me today, I'll expose everything from our past. I'll make sure everyone in your company knows what kind of promiscuous woman you really are. You won't be able to stay here another day. He thought I was still that Iris Lynn who would compromise for the sake of reputation. He was wrong. I laughed. She smiled with an air of nonchalance. I took out another document from my bag. It was a craft paper envelope. Looking somewhat aged, I didn't open it. Just held it in my hand and gave it a gentle pat. Rex Jew, do you really think these are all the cards you have to play? I stood up, resuming that condescending demeanor once more. I have all the evidence of your extramarital affair and long-term illegal cohabitation with Su Qing, including your hotel check-in records and the exorbitant bills from the maternity center right here. I have already instructed my lawyer to file a lawsuit in court, demanding that you compensate me for emotional damages. The amount isn't much, just 500,000. Rex Jew's eyes widened in shock, but that wasn't all. I watched his face contort with fear as I slowly revealed my final, most lethal trump card. Also, I paused, watching with satisfaction as the terror in his eyes grew. Then, word by word, I enunciated with perfect clarity. Did you forget that 3 years ago, on that road in the suburbs, you were drunk and hit an elderly man on an electric bike with your car? You were scared to death at the time and just drove off. Later, it was your so-called good buddy, what was his name again? Oh right, Li Qiong. You asked him to take the fall for you. You gave him 100,000 yuan to shoulder the blame for this matter. Rex Jew's body began to tremble violently, uncontrollably. His lips quivered, unable to utter a single word. Unfortunately, I smiled, but to him, that smile was more terrifying than a devil's. Just last week, I found Li Qiong. He recorded everything that happened back then, signed it, and pressed his fingerprint. The original documents are right here in this bag of mine. I shook the craft paper bag in my hand. Rex Jew, you tell me, which is the more serious crime, embezzling 200,000, or hit and run plus bribing others to obstruct testimony? This was my most deeply hidden card. It was also the last straw that broke him. Rex Jew's gaze shifted from terror to shock, and finally, to a lifeless grey. It was as if all his bones had been pulled out, leaving him completely limp on the ground, without even the strength to kneel. At last, he understood. From the moment I discovered his infidelity, from the moment I lost my child, I had already begun plotting. Every act of endurance, every instance of compliance, every moment of silence over these past 2 years was merely gathering chips for today's ultimate reckoning. I didn't spare him another glance. I turned and walked away, my high heels clicking decisively as I strode through the office building's entrance without looking back. Behind me came Rex Jew's inhuman wail, a sound laced with despair, terror, and utter collapse. To me, that sound was the most beautiful symphony in the world. Rex Jew was completely finished. The company immediately reported him to the police for embezzlement, and with the additional serious charges of hit and run and witness tampering. The combined penalties would ensure a long prison sentence awaited him. The car still under his name with outstanding loans was repossessed by the bank, leaving him burdened with both company and personal debts. His life, from what he thought was the pinnacle of success, instantly plunged into an abyss of utter ruin. Upon learning that Rex Jew had no chance of recovery, Su Qing displayed astonishing decisiveness. She fled overnight with the last remaining cash and valuable jewelry Rex Jew had hidden in their love nest, taking her less than 3-month-old son with her, vanishing without a trace. She thought she could walk away unscathed, but she forgot every maternity center she stayed in, every extravagant purchase she made. All left records. The court summons soon arrived at her rented apartment, demanding she return all the expenses Rex Jew had paid for her with illicit funds. A few days later, a haggard woman came to my law firm. It's Sue Ching. Gone was her former charm, her face was sallow, her eyes sunken, as she held a wailing infant in swaddling clothes. Looking several years older than me, she wanted to play the fellow woman sympathy card with me. Sister Iris Lynn, I know I was wrong before. I was blinded and deceived by that scoundrel Rex Jew. She squeezed out a few tears, her voice choked with sobs. I have nothing left now, and I have to raise the child alone. I really don't know what to do. Please, for the sake of the innocent baby, let me go. As long as you're willing to drop the lawsuit, I'll do anything. She even gave me a suggestive look, as if to say that if I was willing, she could let me raise the child. I looked at the baby in her arms, crying incessantly from hunger, its tiny wrinkled face so much like Rex Jew's. For a moment, my heart ached sharply. I thought of my own child, the one I never got to meet. But that fleeting emotion was quickly suppressed. I looked at Sue Ching, my gaze devoid of any warmth. You've got the wrong person. Your path was chosen by you. Your ending should also be borne by you. I'm not here to run a charity. Sue Ching, seeing that I wasn't falling for her trap, finally dropped her last pretense and began to hurl abuse. Iris Lynn, you venomous woman, you destroyed Rex Jew, and now you're coming for me. You'll get what's coming to you. I couldn't be bothered to argue with her and simply pressed the intercom. Security, there's someone causing a disturbance here. Please come up and handle it. Soon, 2 tall security guards escorted away the unruly Miss Sue. This farce was far from over. With no way out, Sue Ching actually sought out Sky Wang. One was fighting over the meager remnants of Rex Jew's seized assets, while the other blamed all the responsibility for her son's imprisonment squarely on the other party. 2 women who were once, to some extent, allies ended up in a violent brawl over a few $1,000s and some old pieces of jewelry in that shabby rented apartment. It is said that their fight spilled from inside the apartment to the outside, with their hair and clothes torn into disarray. Eventually, neighbors called the police, and both were taken to the station. At the police station, Sky Wang pointed at Sue Ching's nose, calling her a home-wrecking vixen who had seduced her son. Leading to the Jew family's ruin, Sue Ching, hands on her hips, fired back, accusing Sky Wang of being a greedy old vampire who had drained Rex Jew dry, pushing him onto the path of crime. This dog-eat-dog farce quickly became the biggest joke among the neighbors during their casual chats. When lawyer Jiang told me these stories as jokes, I was handling a new pro bono case. I just smiled faintly without making any comment. Watching them turn against each other and tear into one another was far more satisfying than taking action myself. This bloodless victory is all the more brilliant. Rex Jew's case has been decided, multiple sentences combined, 8 years of fixed-term imprisonment. The day before being sent to prison to serve his sentence, he applied through his lawyer to see me one last time. I hesitated for a moment, but still went. It wasn't for him. I just wanted to personally put an end to this miserable chapter of the past. The visitation room was cold and oppressive. We were separated by a thick layer of bulletproof glass. Speaking through telephone receivers, he was dressed in grey prison garb, his hair shaved to a crew cut, and he looked at least 10 years older than his actual age. The arrogance, shrewdness, and scheming in his eyes were all gone, replaced only by a lifeless, ashen dullness. When he saw me, he picked up the phone, his lips moving slightly before finally uttering a hoarse voice after a long pause. "You're here." I responded calmly. He seemed taken aback by my composure, pausing for a moment before letting out a bitter laugh. "Iris, I've wronged you." Tears streamed down his face, the kind that come too late, genuine tears of remorse. If only time could turn back, I would never have. He began to ramble on, talking about when we first met, about our wedding vows, about how he was gradually consumed by vanity and greed, step by step, until he reached this point today. This was the first time he had ever been so honest in dissecting himself. I listened quietly, without interrupting him. His confession, his apology, hold no meaning for me anymore. Once harm is done, it can never be erased. Belated affection is cheaper than grass. When he finally finished speaking, the room fell into a long silence. He looked at me with hopeful and pleading eyes. As if waiting for my forgiveness, I looked at him and slowly picked up the telephone receiver. My heart was calm and undisturbed. I only said one thing, Rex Jew. The day I had the miscarriage, it hurt a lot too. After saying that, I didn't wait for his response and hung up the phone directly, then stood up. Through that cold glass, I saw him freeze completely, the color draining from his face in an instant, his expression of pain frozen in place. I didn't look back again. I turned around and walked out of that oppressive visitation hall, step by step. When I stood in the sunlight again, I took a deep breath. The air carried the scent of grass and soil. I felt as though the massive boulder that had weighed on my heart for years had finally been lifted completely. Unprecedented ease. The dust has settled. Sky Wang completely lost her financial support and emotional pillar when her only son was imprisoned, and her health collapsed immediately. She was evicted by her landlord and had no choice but to return in disgrace to her rural hometown. It's said that she curses me and Su Qing at the village entrance every day, telling anyone who will listen about her miserable fate. But the villagers have already heard about her affairs with Rex Jew, and no one sympathizes with her anymore. The court ultimately ruled that Rex Jew must compensate me with 500,000 yuan for emotional damages, although he is now penniless. This debt will follow him forever like a brand. With the money from selling that apartment and my savings over the years, I officially became a partner at lawyer Jiang's firm by investing in it. Together, we established a new department dedicated to providing free legal support to women who have been harmed in marriage and need legal assistance but cannot afford high attorney fees. I took off those black-framed glasses I had worn for many years, switched to a more professional outfit, and devoted all my energy to my new career. The first pro bono case I took on involved a young girl who had suffered long-term domestic violence from her husband and was facing malicious property transfer during their divorce. The first time I met her, she was curled up in a corner, her eyes timid and her whole body trembling, like a frightened fawn. Looking at her, I felt as if I were seeing myself from 2 years ago. I used my professional knowledge to help her gather evidence and draft the lawsuit. I used my personal experience to encourage her, telling her that she was not at fault, the abuser was. I told her that the law was her most powerful weapon, and she needed to learn how to wield it to protect herself and reclaim everything that was rightfully hers. The lawsuit proceeded smoothly. In the end, the court ruled in favor of the divorce. And the girl not only received her fair share of the property but also successfully applied for a personal safety protection order. On the day of the verdict, the girl hugged me tightly outside the courthouse, crying and saying, "Sister Lin, thank you, really thank you. You gave me the courage to live again." At that moment, I felt an unprecedented sense of fulfillment. This fulfillment was far deeper and more meaningful than seeing Rex Jew kneeling before me. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the law firm, gazing down at the bustling city traffic below. My phone pinged. It was a travel photo my parents had sent from Switzerland. In the photo, they stood beneath the snow-capped mountains, beaming with joy, as happy as 2 children. My new life wasn't just for myself. Not just for myself, but for all who love me and those who need my help. The abyss of the past did not consume me. Now, it has become the firmest foundation beneath my feet, allowing me to stand taller and see farther.